Julius voluntarily decided to become the father of sextuplets who were universally disliked by others. A decade later, the most surprising truth about them was revealed. While driving back home, Julius glanced into his rearview mirror. 4 of the girls were sitting in the back of his pickup truck, while the other 2 sat in the front with him. The 4 girls in the back were silent, and so were the 2 in the front. The car was solemnly quiet, as if they were driving to a funeral rather than to their new home. Their expressions were far from joyful. Instead, they appeared numb and neutral. It was the kind of look someone has after facing too many disappointments, where they no longer see the point in raising their hopes. Julius was coming from the orphanage, where he had signed all the papers and assumed full guardianship of the 6 toddlers. They were his adopted daughters now, and he was their father. He liked to think of himself as a father without the word adoptive in it, because he didn't intend to see them as separate from him for even a second. Julius was the kind of person who was all in or nothing. He had accepted these girls as his own, and he wasn't going to turn back on that decision no matter what. According to the caretakers at the orphanage, the 6 toddlers had been there for 5 years. The girls lost their parents when they were 4 years old, and had been staying in several orphanages ever since. Their story was tragic, and had compelled Julius to make the decision to adopt them. To others, it seemed like an impulsive choice, but Julius felt very right about the decision he had made. The 6 toddlers were 9 years old, and had all been born on the same day. Julius found this incredible. They were the first set of 6 toddlers he had met in his life. He was sure they would probably be the only ones. None of the girls looked alike, but they all bore a strong resemblance to one another and were all incredibly beautiful, even at their tender ages. Julius found it odd that they hadn't been adopted before the caretakers shared the girls' tragic story with him. The girls had been moved around to different orphanages. The first orphanage that had taken them in housed them for a year and a half. That length of time was the longest they had stayed in any orphanage. During their stay in that first orphanage, the girls had been scared and displayed signs of PTSD. They had to undergo child therapy for a few months before they started talking, playing freely, and relating to other children. Shortly after, many couples showed interest in adopting the girls. None of the potential adoptive families were willing to adopt all 6 girls at once. Instead, they preferred to adopt just 1 or 2 of them. Their caretakers understood that 6 girls would be difficult for anyone to take in and counted it as a blessing that the girls would be adopted at all. They thought that perhaps by the time 4 couples adopted 1 or 2 girls, all the sisters would find homes. However, the girls refused to be separated. They wailed, cried, refused to eat, and kicked up a fuss whenever any of their sisters received an offer to be adopted. They had done this numerous times, and their caretakers grew frustrated. The caretakers decided to try another method. They approached couples who wanted children and suggested they test run living with the girls for some time to see if they could adopt all 6 of them. In the first family the girls lived with, the wife grew to dislike them after a few weeks because she claimed the girls stole her husband's affection. For this reason, the girls were sent back to the orphanage. The orphanage eventually transferred them to another one. The second orphanage also sent the girls to live with another couple for a short time. For a few weeks, everything went smoothly, but then the wife of the household became pregnant with a long-awaited child. By the 2nd month of her pregnancy, she fell ill, and her husband blamed the girls for her illness. He claimed that the girls were witches and wanted to harm his wife and unborn child so that they would be the only children in the family. The girls were returned to the orphanage and ultimately were moved to a 3rd one. Like the 1st and 2nd orphanages, the 3rd orphanage sent the girls to live with another couple. This couple was religious, and the people in their community held them in high esteem. Nobody expected any issues to arise from this arrangement, but major problems arose when the couple lost some valuable jewelry and money that they had been keeping for others. Instead of owning up to their own faults, they accused the girls of stealing and severely beat them as punishment. The girls were 7.5 years old when this happened. They came together and secretly hatched a plan to run away. They were successful and went to the police. The police brought the couple in for questioning, and their investigations led to other unpleasant discoveries. The woman was having an affair, while the man was involved in gambling. Overnight, the couple's reputation was destroyed, and people in the community unfairly blamed the 6 toddlers. The hatred for the girls was so strong that they were transferred to an orphanage out of state, which was the 4th orphanage. A few months after they lived in the 4th orphanage, it closed down, and they were transferred to the 5th orphanage. Numerous problems continued to occur at the different orphanages until they reached the 9th one, where Julius discovered them. By this point, everyone had become so fed up with the girls that they wanted to wash their hands of them. The director of the orphanage told the girls that they still had a chance to be adopted, but they would have to be separated. The girls were so sad and looked at one another with eyes full of fear. They did everything they could to stay together, but it didn't work. They would have to say their goodbyes. It was in that dire moment that Julius walked into the orphanage. Julius was a florist, whom the director of the orphanage had hired for his services. Major sponsors of the orphanage would be coming in a few days, and the director wanted to make the grounds colorful and attractive with flowers. Julius overheard the director telling the girls that they had come to the end of the road and would have to go their separate ways. The girls' reaction haunted Julius. He was moved with deep compassion for them. Knocking on the director's door, he entered the office and told the director that he had a large home, where all the girls were welcome to live. Julius was a black man, and the girls were white, but he was not daunted by this fact. He was ready and willing to take responsibility for them. The management of the orphanage had been so relieved when Julius confirmed that he truly wanted to take the girls to live in his house. For record-keeping purposes, they asked him a few questions to confirm that he was eligible to be their guardian. Julius was a widower who lived with his mother, Mildred, who was in her 50s. Both of them earned a reasonable income that could support the entire family, including the girls. Despite this, the orphanage arranged to pay Julius a monthly sum for looking after the girls, but he refused it. He told the management that he wasn't taking the girls to live with him for a test run. He was bringing them into his home to be his daughters, and he wanted to fully adopt them. He would be their father. Everyone looked at him as if he were crazy. Didn't he know that these girls were despised? Yet, they let him adopt them. A few weeks later, the adoption proceedings were completed. At Julius's house, his mother, Mildred, was excited to meet the girls. She loved children, and Julius had already told her the girls' story. She felt their pain. They had been through so much and were only 9 years old. She wanted them to feel at home and to bring them comfort. In her eyes, the 6 toddlers were her long-lost grandchildren who had finally come home. She was committed to ensuring they were raised properly. Mildred had another reason for her happiness about the adoption of the girls. Julius had been lonely for 5 years, ever since his wife passed away during childbirth. He hadn't dated anyone or tried to create another family. He simply lived with his mother in his 5-bedroom duplex located on the outskirts of the city. He grew the flowers he supplied for his business on that land and had a small garden, too. From the day the girls arrived at the house, Julius provided for all their basic needs and any additional needs that his mother mentioned. However, for weeks, the girls remained withdrawn and quiet. They said thank you at the appropriate times and only spoke when spoken to, no more, no less. The girls acted this way because they were cautious. They had lived with many people in the past who were initially nice to them but eventually turned hostile. Neither Julius nor Mildred liked how formal and uncomfortable the girls were, but they didn't know what to do to change it. They continued to treat the girls well, corrected them kindly when necessary, and asked them about the things they liked. Although they were fed up with the girls' monotonous answers, they didn't give up on them, and one day it paid off. One of the girls, Dew, was dusting the sitting room when she accidentally broke a family heirloom that Mildred was very protective of. Dew was so scared she wanted to run away. She believed that Mildred would beat her up and throw her and her sisters out because of her. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. However, Mildred walked into the sitting room, noticed the damaged heirloom, and quickly went to Dew's side. Did you hurt yourself? Are you bleeding anywhere? Do you want to see a doctor? Mildred fired the questions in rapid succession. Her eyes roamed over every corner of Dew to make sure she wasn't hurt. Dew was surprised that Mildred didn't want to punish her, and was genuinely interested in her well-being. She burst into tears, and Mildred wrapped her in a warm hug, comforting her. After that incident, the girls saw that Julius and his mom were truly good people who cared about them. In the months that followed, the girls opened up to them and began behaving like a real family. While some of the girls helped Mildred with house chores and in the kitchen, the others learned how to grow flowers in the garden from Julius. They helped him take care of the flowers, and as a result he was able to grow more flowers and have a bigger garden. The best part was that the girls genuinely enjoyed participating in those activities. They didn't do it reluctantly. They were so joyful whenever they engaged in any task, which warmed the hearts of Julius and Mildred. On one occasion, Mildred set up a bake sale just for enjoyment. She and some of the girls baked so many different things that they sold out in a short time, and many people were asking for more. They made so much money that they considered starting a baking business. Additionally, more clients contacted Julius for his floral services, and he was able to fulfill all the orders because he had more flowers. He started making more money as a result and often surprised the girls with thoughtful gifts. 2 years after the girls started living with him, Julius asked them if they wanted to do anything special, and they all said they would like to go on a camping trip. Julius hired a van and made the necessary arrangements for a one-night camping trip. He wanted to keep it short in case they didn't enjoy the experience, and wanted to return home quickly. However, he and his mom got a huge surprise on the trip. At the campfire, the girls sang a song together. Each of them had a distinct voice that blended perfectly and harmonized effortlessly. The jaws of Mildred and Julius nearly dropped to the ground. They had no idea that the girls had this talent. As soon as they returned from the camping trip, Mildred went to the choir leader at her church and begged her to train the girls to sing better. The moment the choir leader heard the sextuplets sing, she was sold on the idea. The girls were excited that they would have a professional guide them and help them improve their singing skills. They loved to sing together, but until then, they had been too shy to do it in front of Julius and Mildred. They began practicing 4 times a week under the guidance of the choir leader. This went on for an entire year before the choir leader started signing them up to sing at local events and festivities. The girls continued to practice and constantly improved. They could perform many styles very well for Julius and Mildred. A few years later, when the girls were 19, a talent hunting competition came up. At this point, the girls had completed high school. 3 of them wanted to go to college, while the other 3 wanted to pursue business and other interests. The prize money for the talent hunt competition was huge and would support all of them in their endeavors. For this reason, they decided to sign up for it. It would also be the last time they expected to sing together for a long time. They put all their hearts and souls into preparing for the competition. They chose to perform in a cappella style. They practiced long and hard to get everyone's parts done right. When they eventually performed in the competition, it was an instant success. Both the judges and the audience applauded them with a standing ovation. Video clips of their performance went viral. They won the competition and became social media sensations. A huge record label approached the girls and offered them a very lucrative record deal, They replied that they would consider it. A few days later, while the girls were still considering the offer, an unknown woman showed up on their doorstep. She was beautiful, elegant, and her style was sophisticated. It was Julius who answered the door, and he thought the woman was there to make an offer to the girls. In the past few days, they had received numerous offers to model for brands, endorsement deals, commercial deals, and much more. Everyone wanted to jump on the bandwagon of their rising success. But the woman replied to Julius that she wasn't there for any of that. She requested to be let in to see the girls. Julius wanted to refuse her request, but her eyes convinced him. They were kind and sad at the same time. 10 years ago, Julius had adopted the girls, and years later, he discovered the shocking truth about them. When they were all seated in the sitting room, the woman introduced herself to the family as Ariel, the biological mother of the girls. There was an audible gasp in the room. Ariel revealed her life story to them. Her parents had been poor, illiterate, and naive people who had married her off to a much older man in exchange for money. The man had wanted an heir, and when Ariel had gotten pregnant, he had been ecstatic. But he had become upset when complications arose. Because of the multiple babies she was carrying, he was upset that Ariel had to be hospitalized for weeks, and he had to pay the bills. The girls had been delivered via cesarean section a few weeks early. The hospital had celebrated their birth by not charging for the prolonged weeks the girls had stayed in the incubator. Ariel's husband had been angry that all 6 babies were girls. Worse, he hadn't been allowed by the doctors to get Ariel pregnant again for years because her body needed to heal. He had started treating Ariel badly, but she had endured it for her kids' sake. However, when the girls were 3 years old, he started drinking and became more violent. By the time the girls were 4, she took them to an orphanage and passed them off as orphans. It had been the only way to ensure that they were taken care of because she didn't have any way of providing for them. She had told the girls to stay together no matter what, and that she would return to find them. For years, Ariel had managed to make ends meet by working in simple, low-paying jobs. She had worked at a small bed and breakfast and had found favor in the eyes of the owner, an old woman who had left the establishment to her when she passed away. Ariel had grown that business, by sheer will, into an exclusive resort. Then she had returned to find her children, but they had disappeared into thin air. It was the videos of their performance at the competition that she had seen and finally found them. The girls were sorry for all their mom had to go through and reconnected with her. She told them their biological father had passed away. He had gotten drunk one day and fallen on the wrong side, breaking his neck. Ariel thanked Julius and Mildred for their kindness to her daughters. They talked for a long time, and she invited everyone for a month-long vacation at the resort, including Mildred and Julius. Ariel had given birth to the sextuplets when she was 19 years old. The girls were 19 already, which made her 38 years old. She hadn't remarried and wasn't in a relationship. Julius was 43 and single too. During their time at the resort, they became attracted to each other, and the girls noticed. They not so subtly started playing matchmaker until Ariel and Julius gave in and started dating. Mere months later, Julius proposed, and Ariel accepted. They got married, and Ariel moved in to live with the man of her dreams, her 6 beautiful daughters, and her caring mother-in-law. Did you enjoy this story? Would you have acted like Julius? Would you have had his patience and tenacity? Let us know in the comments below. It's wonderful when people go through difficult times but eventually find happiness. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video. Thank you for listening.